So welcome to this session of the Founder Stories, guys. Small tweak. I know we've been running the series for quite some time, and I see lots of familiar faces. So welcome to yet another session with the product folks. But this time we have a very special partner with us and two interesting founders. I'll jump into the agenda for today. Let me just pull up the speakers on stage so you can see them. Let me pin their profiles. Awesome. So you can see everyone really well now. Getting started, I think quick agenda. We'll have a 5-minute intro for new folks who don't know about the product folks, a little bit introduction into the community, and a little bit introduction into our partner today, who's StartPack. Arjun will be the co-host. Arjun, the founder of StartPack. Hey, Arjun.
How's it going? I'm excited for today.
Thanks for joining in. So he'll be our co-host for today. And with us, we have Ratan and Amna, the founders of two very interesting startups. We will be jumping into their journeys as well. So not revealing too much upfront, but that'll be a quick intro. And then we have a very interesting set of discussion for you guys. We've broken it down into three parts. The first one is a little bit more into their journeys, right? Understanding why they're building, what they're building, how the run up to this has been. Next one is about YC in general, right? How has life changed after YC? What are some other options for folks who don't make it to YC? And what are some real perks that the hidden insights that we get to know, the hidden benefits of YC? And also, we'll be discussing a little bit more about founder life behind the scenes. We know a lot about the hustle on Twitter, but let's try finding out what the actual life of an entrepreneur looks like. That is the second part. And for the last part, we have a special deal kit that is brought to you by StartPack. So that will be announced towards the end. And a very interesting rapid fire for our founders. I think we've been doing a bunch of things for product folks in general. But in this new series, we've tweaked these questions and we've tried to keep this really informal. So hope you guys enjoy the discussion. If you guys have any questions, do add it to the questions tab on the right, and we'll pick up some of them. Keep it very interesting. Don't go too specific. You can ask things that are not, that are there in the public domain, but feel free to keep it edgy. I'm sure Amna and Ratan have very interesting insights. But without further ado, getting started. I'll just intro a little bit about the product folks and then hand it over to Arjun to start the discussion. So the product folks is a volunteer-driven community of product managers, product marketers, product analysts, and enthusiasts. We've been around for almost 2 years. This is our 153rd event. So been doing this for a bit, and we have a bunch of resources for early stage and mid stage product managers, and starting a couple of things for really senior product leaders. In case you're looking to break into product management, I'll share a couple of links in the chat section. We have learnpm.me, which is a curated set of resources, and we've also added a case study section. So do check that out. Share your feedback. We also have a free APM program. It's called insurjo.club. I'll share that link as well, and a bunch of other activities, but I'm not going to take too long in this section. Arjun, handing it over to you to share a little bit about StartPack and a little bit about our founders here today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'll share a little bit about StartPack, but then let's jump into the stars of the show today. StartPack is a business in a box for online small and medium businesses. And what we do is help folks get set up with a US LLC from anywhere in the world. And then we also help folks get us with a bank account, US payments, handling ongoing compliance and US tax filings. A little bit of the story, we realized when my co-founder and I were starting our first company that it is a pain to go through the full process of setting up software and accounts and the legal and compliance needed to get a business off the ground. Whether you're a venture-backed Delaware C Corp or you're someone who's bootstrapping a business, the pain exists for both folks. And that's why we exist today. And we're super excited to work with and chat with founders globally, but many founders from India too, to help them launch, maintain, and grow a US company to sell globally. That's a little bit about us, but now I'm going to do two quick intros on our fantastic speakers today, and then we'll pass things over to them to get started. First up, we have Amna, who is the co-founder and CEO at Binks. And in terms of the problem they're solving, Indian women have been solving for fit with the help of local tailors for decades. However, the experience remains tedious, and there's much room for improvement. So what Binks has done has made it super easy for women to get clothes tailored from the comfort of their own home. And the way they do that is by using technology to guarantee fit and help tailors scale their business. On the other side, we have Ratan, who's the co-founder and CEO of Spenny. Spenny is, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Arjun, so sorry. I think a bunch of folks are saying that your audio is a little unclear. In case you might want to try a different headphone. Sorry for the interruption. Meanwhile, I think I'll just continue that. I think we were introducing Ratin. Uh, he's back. Arjun's back.
Okay, how's that now?
It's much better. I think it's much better. What's an online event without tech issues, right?
Yes, of
So,
course.
Yeah,
Arjun,
this is the online world equivalent of like mic issues on the stage. You know, when the mic's not working,
Yes.
exactly. I think,
can't get rid of it, can we?
We were just
yeah,
discussing about this. They are like the remote work culture that does not have a culture problem. It has an infrastructure problem. You, the
one hundred.
Wi-Fi does not work. Your electricity, there is no electricity in parts of India, and then you don't.
Bangalore.
Yes, and
Tell
then
us
you
about
don't
it.
have good voice, which is I think.
Arjun, can't hear you. In case you might want to refresh the screen right on top. No worries. I'll continue this bit and we'll wait for Arjun to come back. But a quick intro into Ratan's profile. Ratan is a co-founder and CEO of Spenny, which is the accounts for India. Um, think of it, every time a user makes any digital transaction, what Spenny does it rounds off this amount to the nearest 10 INR rupees, and invests it into the user into a diversified portfolio automatically. So you really don't have to do anything in case you don't have time for this. There are 400 million millennials in India who don't invest because they don't have, maybe enough time, knowledge, or access. And Spenny is just making this entire process easier. So it might be super interesting to hear why they started, what they started. And with this, I'll hand it over, Amna, first to you to just hear about your background, and then a little bit Ratan into your background and why you guys started, what exactly you started. Arjun, welcome back.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Thanks, Josh. You can hear me all right. Just
Yes.
checking in. Super. So I have been building tech startups most of my career. I have worked at hyperlocal services startup, followed by a fintech startup called Simple, which is a one bill, like it's an online credit card, a new age credit card, so to speak. And I think what I enjoy the most about product is customer development specifically. So it's like really finding out who your customers are, what their motivations are to buy or not buy a product, right? And Binks really happened because of my own core experience, very typical founder story. I was hoping it would be something different, but core experience at a local boutique really got me thinking about how it was one of those things in the physical world that had not really kept up. An experience that hadn't really kept up with the times. Everything else was really easy, right? Your home services, you had Urban Company. For your beauty services, you had a bunch of services, etc. But when it comes to tailoring, it's not dying, right? It's not going away. But neither is the experience improving, right? And on a macro level, there were a number of changes that were happening in the industry, right? So we had e-commerce 1.0, which was just about being able to buy anything off the internet, and the next stage of e-commerce essentially, which has already started in the West and is now coming to India, is the age of personalization, right? So I don't know if you people are bombarded with those ads, but I keep seeing ads for like personalized shampoo all the freaking time, right? So, and that's just like one symptom of what's coming, right? So we're moving into an age of personalization. Indian women have been solving for that particular need for a long time by going to local dealers, but that experience leaves a lot to be desired. And yeah, that was essentially how we got started with this. Over to you, Ratan.
Yeah, that's a great story, Amna. For me, I think so. I was again similar to Amna. I was also always into startups. Started the first company right out of college, and then ran that for about a couple of years. And I went ahead to join a investment banking firm, JP Morgan. Got some experience there, but I always wanted to get back into startups, so I quit that again. took some time off to figure out what I really wanted to do. And then I joined this wonderful accelerator called EF, Entrepreneur First, based in Singapore, where I found my, my co-founder. And because I had a finance background and he had a tech background, and we had a common love for fintech products. So the idea was always, we were always sort of exploring around the fintech space. That's when it hit us that we were going through one article one day, and we realized that only 3% of the people in India actually invest their money. And this is in contrast to over like 55% of people who invest in US, more than 50% who invest in other parts of Asia. So why is it that in India there's only 3% which invest? And it's not because of lack of money. It's not that people don't have enough money. It's that the investment solutions out there which are present in the market, people don't have enough knowledge, or they don't have enough time to make those decisions, and it's often you have to make so many decisions. So we decided our simple goal was that, hey, why don't we make an investment product which is actually fun, which is actually passive? What if you make it so fast and simple and easy that literally everyone can start doing it? And so with that as our focus, we wanted to target on the younger generation, specifically people who had just joined their first jobs. So from then on until the first 10 years of your career is when you start building your corpus, and those were the kind of people that we were focusing on. So with that in mind, we knew that we wanted to create a product which is in the investment space, which helps them, and we wanted to sort of have a fun element to it, and that's how we came about with Spenny. So the basic idea of Spenny, for those who are unaware on the call today, is that every time you make any digital transaction, we round up the amount to the nearest 10 rupees and we invest it for you automatically. So let's say if you go out and buy something for 271 rupees, we round it up to 280, and the difference of 9 rupee is automatically invested. And so over time, without you making any conscious decision, you already have a portfolio which is ready for you. So yeah, that's basically the concept.
Very cool.
Yep. No, that's interesting. No, thanks for sharing that. Off the record, I have one question before we dig in. I think we have, like I shared, I think we have a couple of questions lined up. But when you had this idea, right, both of you all had this idea, did you already have like a initial set of people that you wanted to work with that came on board, say your co-founder or your founding team, or did you take time? So how do you think of that initial idea, right? I feel a lot of people struggle there. I see a lot of messages even in our community saying that hey, can I find like a technical co-founder? That's one of the most requested things that I've come across. And also hiring, like early stage hiring is a challenge. So how much of an impact does that really matter? Do you think, Hika, if you have a good idea, if you can figure the rest out? What is your take on this? I think this one is common to both before we jump into singular.
Ratan, do you want to go first since you went through?
Sure. So for us, it was fairly simple to be in general. First of all, in terms of a co-founding team or an early stage team, I think it is just two things essentially. Any business is you build and you sell. These are the two components. And I think that irrespective of how many number of co-founders you have, or how many sort of what's your team size like, or what's your initial team like, you need to make sure that the initial team, whether it's 1 person, 2, 3, or 4 or 5, you do those two things well. You have somebody who builds well and you have somebody who sells well. And if you can do this both, at least for the first 12 months or so, you're set. You don't need any other expertise, or you don't need any other thing, because until you reach product market fit, you don't really need to, you need specific talents. You just need someone to build and someone to sell. And I think that's how I look at it in terms of either a co-founder or in terms of an early founding team. I hope that helps.
Got it.
Yeah. So yes. So I met my co-founder at the last company that we were both working at. We worked together for about 3 years, before we decided to quit and start up. And one, we had been working together for a bit, so we knew that we were compatible colleagues, right? And two, we had complementary skill sets. It's like exactly what Ratan said. He essentially brought in the tech and data science expertise, and I brought in the product and marketing expertise. So we were complementary that way. And I personally feel like you should definitely work with these people before you sort of take the plunge, maybe work on small projects or something like that, because it is one thing that I think YC sort of drills down in our heads early on is that one of the biggest reasons why startups fail is because founders break up, right? So if you're sort of going into this really grueling endeavor with somebody, you want to work with somebody who you've been in the trenches with, right? So maybe build a project. You don't have to know them for years. I think you can. If you find the right person, you can sort of hit it off with them very quickly and get comfortable. So I think just do a couple of projects before you take the plunge would be my opinion.
Interesting.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe we can jump into the first question, which Amna, you sort of pointed to already. You mentioned one of the things which YC drills down is the importance of that founder relationship, and not just the founder relationship at the start, but how do you maintain it going forward too? So let me ask a difficult question here, because unfortunately, you can't run an A/B test on your life. It happens. But let me ask each of you, what would you say life would have been like without YC? And it's difficult to imagine, but how do you think YC changed your company's trajectory? And on the flip side, I mean, let's be pretty candid here. If you didn't get into YC, would you have stopped working on your startup? What do you think's in your control as well?
Who wants to go first?
Yeah, Amna, do you want to start first?
Yeah.
Sure. So we got into YC when we just had the idea and a very basic MVP, a test that we had run, with a pop-up shop, etc. So for us, I think YC started shaping our journey right at the beginning, because just going through the YC application process helped us answer a lot of fundamental questions, because we had an idea, we filled the application, we answered a lot of questions for ourselves in that process, and then prepping for the interview was an experience in itself. It's 10 minutes, that you get to really get your point across. It was an exercise in building clarity around what we were doing, right? So I think the biggest impact that YC had right from the get-go, and it sort of ripples, to the present, is the amount of clarity that was brought to our idea, right? What we wanted to do, what we didn't want to do, what about this problem was exciting to us, right? And how did we want to solve for it, etc. So I think that was sort of the biggest, takeaway for us. And had we not got into YC, honestly, I'm not sure. I had given myself a year, to sort of figure out a bunch of different things. Even like during the 3 months of YC, we pivoted and iterated a couple of times before we settled onto what we're doing today, right? So had we not got into YC, we would have probably tried again for the next batch. I think we were lucky we got in the very first time we applied. A lot of our batchmates had actually applied 2-3 times, and that's very common because YC actually likes when founders come back and they have updates on what they've been working on. They like when they see two founders who've been working together for a while, right? Because that essentially shows resilience. So yeah, that's probably what we would have done.
No, interesting. Actually, I'll divide this into 2 parts. One is the sort of the pre-YC, sort of the value add, and then the post-YC value add. In terms of pre-YC, I don't think Amna remembers, but she was the only one who'd actually done a mock interview with us when we were applying for YC. And I remember the call with Amna. It was a quick 10-minute call, and she blasted us. And at the end of the call, I remember she was like, "Guys, you need to like really get your shit in order." And I remember looking at my co-founder. I'm like, "Okay, we are not prepared for this," because that is a funny thing. I don't think you remember this, but yeah, this is. But thank you so much. Yeah, because I think that really helped us.
I think I apologized to you then, and I'm apologizing again. But like I
No,
do that
no,
with all my mock interviews, because I'm just like, I'm going to like make you feel really bad so that like Michael doesn't when he takes your interview finally. So like, yeah.
I think no, there are 2 things. One is that I think you should not. I mean, it's the other way around. I'm very grateful that this happened. But because so what we did was that. So after you, we had like a couple of other mock interviews lined up. We canceled all of them. We said, hey, there's no point taking more mock interviews. We need to go back and actually do sort of a homework. And that really helped. I think that really helped because come the day of the interview, it was very, very similar. And it was Anu who was firing questions within 10 minutes. And So it was really well prepared. It's a good thing that happened. It's part of the reason why we're here. So definitely, there's a funny story. But yeah, so pre-YC, sort of the value add, I think that Amna very well covered, in the sense that it helped us. Three things specifically. One, you need to know very well about your market. Two, you need to know your matrix of the market like the back of the hand. And three, make sure that you're putting emphasis on the speed to execution. Because when we applied to YC, we were literally just a 2-month-old company. We did not have a single customer. All we had was a sort of a working prototype, and that's about it. So that's sort of the pre-YC. Post YC, we came out of YC just at the time of the pandemic, which is March 20. So raising a seed round was incredibly tough at that time, because suddenly all investors went into the shell, and rightfully so. And I think this is where, if it was not for YC, it was going to be super difficult for us to actually raise a seed round. We actually managed to raise a seed round simply because of the YC network. And so that was definitely one of the biggest value adds of YC. And of course, they also focus heavily on product. And for the first 2 months, they help you cut out every single sort of noise, and focus only on the main thing, which is that, hey, are you building and are you talking to your users? If you're not building, you should be talking to your users. And if you're not talking to the users, you should be building. That's literally the only two things you should be doing. So definitely, I think that's the YC value add. In terms of a second question, what if not YC? I don't think it was a question. It was ever a question of what happens if not YC, because of course we keep moving on. I mean, I'm pretty sure YC, essentially at the end of the day, they are one investor, and of course you're going to have so many no's. If you think about shutting down a company just because an investor said no, I mean, best of luck to you then.
Great points.
Yeah.
Guys.
I would have shut Binks like 50 times by now if I would like shut a company every time investor said no. But I think since you split it into like pre-YC, post-YC, I'm thinking like post. It's been 2 years, I think, since we went through the interview process. I think this time 2 years ago we were like, I think we had just gotten the email that like we have an interview upcoming and they're going to come to India for the first time and all of that jazz, have a interview in person. And we were like trying to figure out like, and I think back then the literature available for like prepping for YC interviews, it was there, but it isn't as much as it is today. I think there's just like a lot of, informational articles, videos, people have written like full guides to like the YC interview, which is amazing. But back then, we found everything that we could. And I think what continues to, be a value add till today is the network. Really, so like my batchmates, they've gone through multiple pivots. They have, gone through different fundraisers, and there's just like this collective wisdom of the YC tribe, which is incredible, right? So it's so easy to, reach out to people who are at some point in YC, right? You've never met them, you've never spoken to them, they've never heard of you, but you get an email response from them, and I think that is just fantastic, right? So that is something that continues to really book faces like my Facebook. So
that's awesome. That's awesome to hear. I think it's a great stepping stone from what I can receive from here. But one question there, like you mentioned, right? It's a great stepping stone, but it's just a means to an end, right? YC is a great accelerator in one way. One question there, right? Amna, you mentioned like 2 years back, right? Time flies. Ratan, you've been here for a year in the YC network. What are the challenges that you still face? Like, I'm sure like it's a great accelerator, but at today's stage, what are the top 3 challenges that you feel that your company or that you are currently that is still not solved for, right? Even post YC, if there's anything that you'd like to highlight.
Yeah, I think maybe I can go on this one. I think this is going to be very a little more specific to our businesses versus in general. And for us, because we are a fintech we are in the fintech industry, we are always at loggerheads with the regulatory authorities, and that remains till date the number one sort of challenge for us for a variety of reasons. One is that, of course, there is the whole regulatory thing that you need to get a lot of regulations, you need to get a lot of certifications. So therefore, those things remain a challenge. But the second thing is that as a fintech product in India, you need to be reliant on so many other partners, which for which you don't have the tech in your hand. So while your tech may be excellent, but you're dependent on say an ICICI bank, say an SBI bank, say some mutual fund with like a legacy sort of name. They don't have the right tech stack. They don't have the right APIs. So for you to plug your product into, and therefore it becomes incredibly difficult because you are limited not by your tech capacity but by theirs, and therefore to work with them, especially during COVID, when you know that you could have done this faster if you were literally on their head in their office, but you can't. And so I think those challenges, definitely. So I would say infrastructural and regulatory, those two remain the biggest challenges, because I think everything else is in our hand, right? And if something is in our hand, we know that while we might not have the solution right now, but we will eventually get to it. The things that we don't have in our hand are the things which are challenging for sure.
No, makes sense. Absolutely. Amna, anything that you'd like to share specifically at the stage, you guys?
Yeah, I think it's we're ops heavy business. We're essentially trying to use technology to scale something that has no technology in its value chain today, right? So we are essentially and the industry itself isn't the existing tailors, the pattern makers who are in the industry aren't used to using any sort of technology to improve their processes, and we're sort of bringing that in. So we are approaching it from first principles. So, we are at like the 0 to 1 stage where we are really, building out the back end value chain for this industry. And that can be like a painfully slow process because, we're sort of redoing everything, like reapproaching everything from first principles and trying to figure that out. So yeah, I think, YC is a good place to get started. There is initial value, and then after that you have the same problems as just like any other startup, right? So yeah.
Very interesting. Let me ask one quick follow-up question here. If you had to say, what would you say is the biggest existential risk to your business? And to give an example, I don't think if you take Airbnb, you could say not many people saw a global pandemic happening, but that crippled the business, any travel business. And in some extent, that's out of their control. What would you say is sort of this event which, if this were to happen, it could be a competitor or even a macroeconomic event, it would be somewhat catastrophic for your business?
For me, I think this is a very straightforward and easy answer. It is RBI changing their policies regarding payments, which they keep doing for some reason every now and then. But there are certain policies which haven't changed, but they're saying there's a chatter that might change. For example, recently, I'm not sure if you guys follow, this news, but recently it said that recurring mandates or recurring payments would be shutting down. RBI is going to shut down on that. Turns out it didn't actually happen, but in the news it was like, hey, it's going to happen. And it was so serious. Now, if it were to actually happen, that would significantly impact us. And therefore, sort of the biggest risk to us is that government overnight, waking up and changing our entire model. So yeah, that's definitely a risk.
Thankfully, that didn't happen. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that shows that.
Just so that I'm so sorry. 1 second. So basically, just to make sure that this doesn't happen again, we then developed sort of we're now working on an alternate system where we are not anymore dependent on this. But yeah, you never know with them. Yeah, over to you, Amna.
Yeah, I mean, for us, the pandemic was an existential crisis, right? So we were a non-essential service, right? We're essentially online tailors, right? For very simply put, and we had no business for 3 months, and it was a very uncertain time because it wasn't really clear how things were going to pick up post that. But yeah, I mean, it worked out fine because the pandemic happened in the first half of the year and the lockdown happened in the first half of the year. But in the second half is when the festive season in India starts. And, all of the Indians decided to celebrate with abandon anyway, as if there was no pandemic. So it worked out for us in that sense. But yeah, I mean, I think we are, I think we have the same issues that a lot of other businesses might have.
Got it. I think we're already getting a bunch of questions in the tab, so I'll quickly try wrapping up the ones we have, so we have time in the end to take up some of these. We've got a lot of insights from you all on your journey so far and the benefit that YC brings. We have one specific question that Arjun and me were brainstorming. This is one for you, Amna, and one for you, Ratan. Arjun, do you want to start with Amna? Then I'll start with Ratan. We can go either way. We can take one.
Yeah, sure. So I think something which, well, I think Ratan, you were alluding to this earlier around YC advice around if you're not building product or talking to users, you're not doing the right thing, especially during YC.
Yeah.
But then if you think about it, okay, there's 24 hours in a day. Hopefully you sleep for 8 hours. I don't know if you do. Then you build product, talk to users. Is there room for anything else? So I guess the question here is, candidly, at a startup, is work-life balance a myth? Can you have balance, or are there sacrifices and trade-offs you need to make? And yeah, Amna, why don't we start with you? Is work-life balance a myth when you're working on a startup?
Short answer, yes. I mean, I don't think I have any work-life balance. There is work-life, and that's pretty much it, right? So I think Suhas and I were talking about this right before this started. We were talking about this, and I was just like, hey, can I just say that there is no work-life balance? Is that a bad thing to say on a public forum? He was just like, yeah, be honest. So I'm just going to be honest. And yeah, I mean, we're early stage, right? So this is when, it's probably like the hardest. I mean, it does not that it gets easier. I think it gets different as the company goes. It's just different kind of challenges. But when we are early, when we're 0 to 1, there's a lot more uncertainties around, how the business, how the product is going to evolve. The whole, the elusive product market fit that all of us are chasing, right? So it does not leave, time for much else. I think the only sort of the best thing that you can do there is essentially work with people that you really like working with, and that itself becomes its own reward. That's
So true.
how I approach it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's so true. Amna, I had one question for you was around the product market fit, but I purposely removed that. I was like, that is too generic a question to bring up here. But I had one more question for you, right? I really like the concept that you mentioned. You're trying to standardize, you're trying to bring some technology play to a market that's so unorganized today. And not so many people have tried solving this. So you shared a little bit about your challenges earlier, but one question that I had for you is, for every business that is a little bit more on the customization side, how do you scale? Is that something that you're thinking about? I know offline we've discussed you have some very interesting things coming up, but how do you look at it as your idea has progressed? Is that something that hit you very early? Did that deter you from even starting this, or were you like, hey, we'll figure it out as we go through? How's your thought process been?
Yeah, so we actually learned as we were initially very, very scared of doing 100% customization because of the same reason that it's hard to scale. It's hard to sort of keep high NPS if everything is customized, right? Which is essentially like when you go to a tailor, everything is customized, everything is 100% bespoke. The fit is bespoke, the design is bespoke, etc. What we started with was a slightly different model where we decided to standardize some things, and we tried to cut some of the complexity out. But what we realized was that while the demand was there, what customers really wanted was 100% bespoke, right? Like that is what they wanted, the existing experience to be better, while we were trying to be like extra smart and like try and figure out a product that was easier for us to build as opposed to something that was like really solving that problem, right? And which is where that was the first 3 months of IC around which we iterated, we changed, we figured that okay, let's just embrace the chaos and let's do 100% before. And in terms of scaling a customization business itself, right? For those of you who haven't been to a local tailor in India, there's essentially two aspects to the process. One is when the fabric is cut into pieces, and the second is when it's sewn together, right? And the first aspect is where customization really kicks in. Like that is where a product is going to be designed and made to fit a certain customer, as opposed to ready-made garments where they're cut by different sizes, right? And that is where we're essentially like introducing technology, because today that is the biggest choke point for any given tailor. They can only cut so many fabrics a day because they do it completely manually. They have no tech, no plotter, no nothing, right? No tool of any sort that helps them do it. It's just them and their brain, and that is their limitation, right? So we are essentially extending, like helping tailors extend their learned intuition of how they cut those patterns for any given garment, and we are digitizing it, right? We're essentially turning that into software, and when we do that, like the customization value chain essentially gets at par with something like a ready-made garment value chain, where the sewing is something that's always going to be manual. All the clothes that we wear have been stitched together by a human being, right? But we're essentially really redefining the way pattern making is done by local tailors, and that is how we intend to scale this further.
Interesting,
I
very
try to
interesting.
keep it as less technical as possible, but yeah.
No, I think most of our audience is founders and product folk, so they really enjoy when y'all can share these details, right? Every business is a little different, and every new conversation gives us a little insight into a new industry. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, should we maybe Ratan, before you touch on work-life balance, do you actually want to touch on actually maybe a question for you around a challenge here? Investing, saving money is something which everyone knows they should be doing. But if it was as easy to do that, then companies like yours wouldn't exist if everyone would naturally do it. I think the same thing for everyone knows you should get enough sleep and exercise and eat healthy, but people don't. In some way, you're going against human nature here.
Yeah.
How do you do that? You're going against a natural human desire. How do you get people to realize the actual impact? And what is that tipping point where someone is stuck to your product, and how do you do that from a product perspective too?
Yeah. That's a great question, and I think I'll take a little bit of product principle here and try and answer this one. So how do you take something which is not natural to them and make it incentivized such that they are more prone to do this now as opposed to earlier? That's sort of the challenge that we're fighting, right? So if you look at the root problem, why don't people actually invest? That's not because there's not enough money, but that's because there's not enough knowledge or time. But more importantly, what people I think don't discuss about enough is that there's an overwhelming pressure on the user to make the right choice, such that if they don't make the right choice, it might lead to losing their money. And because of this choice, this pressure of making the right choice, there's an inertia of actually doing the homework of investing. Now, what if I were to take away this decision fatigue away from you? What if I told you that, hey, I'm going to take the decisions on your behalf and you don't need to worry about it? And I will link this to something which is somewhat of a daily activity for you, which is like expenditure, which in general you might feel a little guilty about. But what if I offset that by saying that, hey, you don't need to feel guilty about it. Just go ahead and spend. It's fine. We'll keep investing on your behalf. And by the way, you don't need to make any decisions while you are at it. And so if you incentivize this and then make it a part of the daily activity or link it to the daily activity, then what you've done essentially is that you've told the user that, hey, you don't need to make any active decisions. I will take care of that. And therefore you don't have that load on your head. And that was our product philosophy. The other point was that I strongly believe that fintech brands are very boring in general. They for some reason. And I think you don't need to be like so serious about it all the time. You need to make it a little light. You need to make it a little fun. Add a little humor. Make it more relatable to our customer sort of base, which is like the young people, and it'll fly. I'll give you an example. When we started the product, this wasn't the actual product. We started with something completely random. We started it on the base of an article. We read an article which says that in MIT a few years ago, they conducted a research where in one room, they brought a lot of financial analysts. And in the other room, they brought a bunch of monkeys, blindfolded them, and put a list of stocks in front of them, gave them darts. And the monkeys threw the darts on the stocks and they created baskets out of it. And on the other hand, you had the financial analysts create those detailed sort of baskets based on research. They did this for 30 years, for every year, as in they modeled it. For 28 out of those 30 years, the monkeys outperformed the financial analysts. And that's when it hit us that, hey, you know what, we can actually make this fun and try and still sort of make it beat the market. And so the first product that we had was actually a spin wheel. And we asked people to pay us $5 to spin the wheel, and if you spin the wheel, you could either get $100 stock or you could get a $1 stock. It's on your luck. And so many people did it, we ran out of stocks. We did not have enough money to buy stocks. That is how we actually started our product. Of course, there were regulatory reasons, so we could not actually launch this in the real market. But this was good enough for us. This was enough validation for us to know that, hey, you know what? Actually, if you make a product fun enough and engaging enough, it doesn't matter if it's a finance related thing. You can still make it interesting. You can still make a user to start investing. And so with that in mind, we were like, all right, let's talk about triggers. What triggers can you bring in? And it just felt natural that the spending thing was directly proportional to the investing thing. That's how we got started.
Well, that's super interesting. Thanks for sharing. I've read that monkey one earlier, but I'm hoping that you can bring back that spin wheel again, and hope you can figure out some regulatory. It sounds super fun, you know. One question, Ratan, I have for you. There is one school of thought that thinks ki, how people say that save up on your coffees. Do you really need to go for that $5 Starbucks coffee, right? You can save up each penny. Uh, Another school of thought is like, how much will you really save up, right? In the long run, does this really count, right? So one question to you, and this is more personal, right? I've been very inquisitive about this. So with that 10 rupee round off that you're doing, yes, you're definitely helping us build that habit, but in the long run, how much does that count to? You might have some data, some initial data to back this up. Does it really help in the long run, that small amount that I can tie up to? How does that add up?
Yeah. I'm going to answer this in two parts. One, first is that how does this small amounts stack up, and which is interesting because we get this often. And the other is what else are we trying to do to improve, sort of increase the sort of the amounts. Now, in terms of the second question, I think it's fairly simple. We've included a bunch of features now. One is we've had a multiplier option on the app. So instead of you rounding up to 10 rupees, you can then we have a 10x, a 5x, or a 3x, and you can just keep increasing the amount as well. So that's not so much of an issue. We so far we only have one fund which does not give like great returns, but now we're going ahead with three different options where you have multiple, like a low, medium, high, three different baskets. You will get up to 20% returns as well, so that should not be an issue. We're also introducing more asset classes, like we've got a lot of requests for Bitcoin. I'm not going to give away too much right now, but who knows, something interesting here. But those things. But now, coming to the first part, which is probably the most serious part, is that at what point does this small amount start to matter? And in that, we created a very fun sort of a little calculator, and we launched it as kabbanegakrodpati.com. That is something of a sort of a growth hack that we tried. It went crazy viral for some reason, and the logic was simple: how much amount of money do you need to save every day to become a crorepati in 20 years? And it's crazy that the number is like 160 rupees. If you just save 160 rupees every day, that's like $2.5 for Arjun. So that's like it's as little as 160 rupees, and you every day, and within 20 years you'd be a crorepati. And the best part is that if you actually check the pie of that 1 crore, it's only 33 lakhs which you have invested. The 66 lakhs have come from sheer compounding and like from thin air. And that's and that is what people sort of forget when they ask this question as to what happens to the tiny amounts. Yes, the tiny amounts are tiny, but those tiny amounts combined and the compounding on that is what is more valuable.
Yeah, so has stopped going to third grade.
I know, right? That was one thought in my head. So serious about it.
You could
Now,
be a crorepati.
I'm going to start keeping that in mind now. I think someone.
I'm downloading Spenny. 1 second. I'm just downloading Spenny.
Yes, I think Ratan. I mean, maybe towards the end, I think I didn't mention it in case you have a plug, because I shared those links. Couple of people might want to check out your product. So in case you have any, special plugs for our community, do
Yeah.
share that maybe towards the end.
Yeah.
But Arjun, now that we have a couple of minutes left, there are very interesting questions on the tab on the right. And I also really want to do our rapid fire. Which one do you think we should go with first? Do you think we should take up a couple of audience questions and then jump into the rapid fire? Or what order do you want to
Yeah,
go?
let's do that. Why don't we hit the some of the top questions, and we'll finish off with a little with some spicy rapid fire.
Perfect. Sounds great. Folks, do upvote the questions. I'm sure we won't be able to go through all of them, but do upvote. We'll go by that order, the ones that you all select. And I'll pick up the first one, Arjun. I think I'm seeing a couple of them YC related, so I'll club it. Top two that I see are similar. Okay, not exactly similar, but they are in the YC domain. So, Ratan, this one's for you. You mentioned that you got into EF, then you did YC. Uh, how does it add value? Why did you do both of these? And what's your thought on? Um, okay, I think the other one's a little different. So just this, if you could start.
All right. Biggest value out of EF to find a co-founder. Biggest value out of YC for you to focus on the product and revenue. Those are two very different things. And for me, initially, I did not have a technical co-founder. I did not have a solid idea also in place. So EF was a great starting point, but YC was a great continuation. So yeah, I don't think there's a lot of overlap there.
Fair? No, that's fair. Absolutely. I think EF is also picking up quite a lot in India, right? Did you do the India one or the Singapore? Which cohort were you on?
Funny story. I applied for India. I got rejected because the head of EF India told me you're not ready for startups yet. You should go back and do a corporate job. And then I applied to EF Singapore. While coming out of that interview, I got selected in EF Singapore and then got to IC.
Sahi hai, bro. You got to travel another new country. So, no loss there. Next one, I think, yeah, Arjun, you could take this one.
Yeah, let's. Hey, I don't know if you want to take this one. I think this is a very common question, but you're a solo founder. You've worked with the app. Maybe you don't have a product yet, but you've been working hard, talking to users, building product. What are the chances of getting into YC? And maybe how do you maximize your chances if you want to tackle those two?
Sure. So I think YC did earlier at some point believe that they preferred non-solo founders, like teams of founders of 2 or 3. But that has changed more recently because they've also evolved their philosophy as YC has grown. So in my batch, for example, there were a bunch of founders who were solo founders, and so it doesn't quite matter, right? If you've got your initial, if you have your clarity of thought and you've got your initial team, I don't think it's something that matters so much anymore, right? In terms of getting into YC. And the second question about like upping your chances to get through the interview process, right? One, I think there are a lot of people who are like XYC, my batch and more recent batches as well, who are doing mock interviews, who are reviewing applications to totally take advantage of that. Try and review your application to as many people as possible. And really, I think the only one thing that I tell everybody who I do mock interviews with, who I review applications of, YC really, really cares about your clarity of thought, right? So they don't expect you to be right off the bat, right? They don't expect you to have, thousands of dollars of revenue or anything like that. You can go in with an idea, but if you're clear about, who you're building for, why you're building it, how does it work, and how are you going to make money, right? If you have clarity of thought on those things, they will put their weight behind you, right? So really, really, I think use the application, like the written application as a process to really, drill down to those specifics and cut out the fluff, right? There is this, I think our education system has made us, want to add a lot of fluff to the stuff we write, right? And just cut it out, right? Like if you can say the same thing in 5 words, say it in 5 words, you don't need 15 words, right? So be precise, be specific, and that would be, I think, do that and you're like in the top 1% already.
Fair. And I think the number of startups that YC is taking in is also increasing. The India pool is also increasing. So I think good chance. Obviously, the competition's also that much higher. Lots more people now know about it. Very good quality of applications coming through. So it's both ways, but I think the options are increasing. Like you mentioned, there are so many more options in the market today to understand what YC is looking for. A lot more founders are there who are willing to do mock interviews, like Ratan mentioned. Amna, for those who joined in later, Amna was one of the ones who helped, yeah, Adios, the word helped him, with the mock interview. So I think lots more of the ecosystem participation definitely coming in, right? So guys, any other questions you'll have on the YC, feel free to DM Ratan and Amna. Are pretty active on Twitter. I think I'll probably share that would be the best way. Ratan, Amna, Arjun as well. Arjun's also YC, if you all don't know. He's being super elusive here, but he's also a YC founder. So what would be the best way to reach you guys?
Yeah, Twitter would be. Yeah.
Twitter, 100%. Please don't. I mean, if you can send me a LinkedIn message, but I'll probably get back to you after a month. So Twitter is
Okay.
ideal.
But LinkedIn is full of spam. I have no idea what is an actual
Yeah.
like a good message is what is not. So I've stopped looking at LinkedIn DMs
Yes.
now.
Yeah, we could do an entire session on that for sure.
Yep.
Like, how does LinkedIn improve? But I'll share your links on the chat section, so folks, y'all can DM them around YC. Arjun, since we have just a couple of minutes left, I'll probably jump into the rapid fire. We'll take the first three that we have there. We'll do this
Let's do
alternatively,
it.
but hope you guys find it fun, and I'll get this started. So we'll start off with Amna. We could do one, right? So we'll put out the question. Amna, you could go first. Ratan, you could take the next one. Um, it's a billboard question, right? So this is a famous one that we've flipped from somewhere else. If you could have a billboard and everyone in the world sees it, what would it say? Amna, first you.
So it's a Buddhist quote that I sort of live by. It says, "Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional." It's sort of been my mantra for the last 2 years. So yeah, if you plan to start up, you should just have that written somewhere in front of you all the time.
Nice.
That's super thoughtful. Oh my god, mine's going to be a honey badger always, and that's because honey badger is an animal which it does not have like a lot of like strength, or it does not have a lot of this thing speed, but it always wins in any fight because it's just it because it has this innate ability to just find a way. It does not matter. You can cage that animal, you can bar that animal, it will find a way to get outside. I think that's a wonderful thing.
Nice. That's
I'm
being like
sensing a
super.
trend. Yeah, sensing a trend between you two and the founders. You have resilience. There's going to be suffering. There's going to be pain. Be a honey badger. You got to be resilient.
Yep.
Okay. One quick question, Ratan, which we'll add this to the rapid fire in 1 minute or less. Work-life balance, is it a myth?
Yes.
Why?
I don't think work-life balance exists, to be honest, because I mean, see, come on. If you wanted a work-life, we've not chosen to do this because we wanted a 9 to 5 and a work-life balance. We're here because we wanted to make some difference. And if you want to be at the top 1% of your game in any field, I'm not saying just startups. It's going to ask more out of you, and you have to be ready for it. To be honest, so I don't think there's a work-life. That being said, I also think that for startups or for businesses, a lot of it is creative work. And for creative work, you need time and space. So it's not as if you are at it for 16 hours a day for like 7 days a week, that's not going to really help you. That's not your job. You get to have a team and all that. But the creative work, you need to have the breaks which are necessary. Only then will you get those creative juices flowing because that's really your job.
Do you
Makes
quantify
sense.
how do you? I know this is not part of the rapid fire, but now I'm interested to ask how do you no, seriously, like how do you take it beyond the founders, right? If it's your idea, if it's that founding team, I'm sure everyone's putting in the hours. You don't really have to quantify saying like 14 hours, 16 hours a day. But how do you take this to the next set of members, right? First 8 to 10 members, I think it's easy because you're handpicking and joining them. And maybe that's the stage you're at. But I
Yeah.
all really think, how does this percolate over time? How do you find those resourceful hustle? I mean, not the positive side of hustle. How do you find that team that you really want to work with? Do you have something around that?
Can I take that?
Yeah, I was going to say Amna has more experience in this.
Oh my God. Pressure. So I think this is something that I've experienced in, working with different startups and talking to my friends who worked at other startups, right? Is that 80% of the company culture remains, the personality of the founders, right? So I think it's just, which I think it puts a lot more pressure on the founders to sort of really, stay on the A game, build that discipline. So, for example, I care a lot about documentation, right? So, as because I've seen, like if organizations really break down because there wasn't enough documentation in place, right? Like new people came in and they didn't know where to start. There was insight, really valuable insight that was lost, that wasn't like passed on because there was no documentation. And so I try to instill that. I try to write more. I encourage my employees to do more of that, right? And it's really like, I think it's that first, like you said, the first 10 people that you hire are critical, are crucial to that goal. And beyond that, it's I think there are a lot of different like management fundas around like how you sort of build the culture, etc. I don't think I'm eligible to give any yarn on that just yet. My team is small, so I'm also trying to figure this out very honestly. But yeah, I think Ratan dropped off. Yeah.
No worries. We'll do a V2 of this session in maybe a couple of months, and hopefully we'll hear that bit of it.
Yes, looking forward to it.
Awesome. Arjun, do you want to jump back into the rapid fire, the second question?
Yeah, let's do. If you could, each of you, invest in. Why don't we do this? I'm going to add a little tweak to it. Invest in one private early stage startup and then one public company too. What would you invest in?
Okay, so I am become a recent very big fan of Rome Research. I feel like they might have finally solved note taking for me, and actually, because so far I think note taking apps have been about archival or rapid note taking, like immediate note taking. But both is something that none of these apps have solved for me so far. So I'm a big fan of Rome Research. I see a lot of potential, and it's become a cult, right? I mean, I think they've done an incredible job with the community. There are, it's got all of the, all of the signs of an early cult. And public company statistics, I'm a very, very big fan of Katrina Lake and what she's built at statistics. Their model has essentially proven, how much personalization, like prioritizing personalization and quick can mean to the fashion business. They are an inventory-heavy business with ridiculous margins and ridiculous retention rates, and that is like literally my dream, right? So it's and the local tailor is kind of the statistics of India, so you can see the parallel there.
To get Binks, hopefully everyone's going to start referring it as the Stitch Fix of India, and hope you guys grow to that scale. All the best for that.
Only a matter of time.
Only a matter of time. That's nicely
That's the
said.
spirit.
Yep. And I completely agree. I think Rome Research and On Deck, like these are two that I see, and I keep talking to a lot of folks where they've really built that cult, right? It's not even just community. Now it's just a cult, right? There's a difference when people are trying to build community, and when community takes it to the next scale, it's everyone just talking about it. I'm not sure of the internal. I haven't been part of either, but from the outside, it feels phenomenal. Like the way the people are standing for it. So yeah, definitely these are two. Ratan, what's your take?
Yeah, sorry, I dropped out in the middle. What is the question? What question
It's
I've done?
one early stage startup. In case you had the capital, which one would you invest in, and what's your favorite public listed company that you'd
Um, one startup that I would invest in. I think it would be Pepper Type content, because they've been doing some really, really good stuff. And I think the team is incredible. It's a phenomenal team. Super young guys, and just lots of energy and just trying to do good stuff. And the best thing about it is I feel like they're super hacky, and I know that I can trust them with, like, if they're going to hit a problem, they will find a solution. And therefore, I feel like definitely would put my money on them. A public company, but could be in India or could be anywhere. It's
Anyway.
um that's a I'm going to say Airbnb because the recent IPO and all that. Like they're going to IPO and so again Airbnb simply because I similar sort of characteristic. If a company has managed to in a pandemic year, if they've managed to have a greater net profit margin, sort of if they've reduced the losses as opposed to the other years, and while increasing the top line, that's crazy for a business which was predominantly based on travel. They found out new ways to do it. I mean, if they can do that at that level, if like for example, if Binks and Spenny, we are at a stage where pivoting is probably definitely easier than Airbnb. It's Airbnb is like the evergreen ship, and it's stuck in the Suez Canal, and it has to now move and find a way. And if they can do that, man, that is insane. So yeah, definitely.
That's even more resilience there. But I was laughing here because I was hoping you would say for the public company you would ask the monkey to invest. I could have sworn you were going to say it. I was just waiting for it. I was waiting for it, but it didn't happen.
Oh man, this is such a
Missed
lost
opportunity, Ratin. Missed opportunity.
Yes, I agree. Such a missed opportunity.
Now, Ratan, in case you're looking for a mascot, we know what it cannot be anything but a monkey. In case you're looking for a
Yes.
mascot for Spenny,
This is yes, definitely. I
we'll,
think we
we-
should do that.
we'll hold you publicly accountable now. There are 85 people still here. No,
Yes.
on a lighter note, I think we're just running out of time. I think we're 6 minutes overboard, so not stretching this. Last question here is many folks have also mentioned that they are probably applying for YC this year. What's your top tip that you think, maybe in case you've seen a couple of other companies interviewing, or folks who are looking very early into their journey who might be exploring YC? What do you think is that top tip which might not be written about out there? And Arjun, maybe you could also.
Ratin, you want to go next?
Yeah, well, maybe I can. I'm not sure if this is not written about. I'm pretty sure it is written about. But my top tip would still remain the same. Metrics, big market, and speed to execution. I don't think there is anything else beyond these three things which are as important. If you focus on these three, I think you're good.
Yeah, I think beyond having clarity and being precise, if you've got that covered, I think harder about distribution. I think we like problems and solutions are easier, but finding ways to and paths to customers, acquiring them at a reasonable cost without really burning a lot of cash, etc. That is hard. Right, and that is something that all founders struggle with even as we scale. So think harder about that. Have good answers for something like that. And again, I don't think it's something that's not written about. I think there's a lot of literature on preparing for YC now, but that would be my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I can add in one quick one. I'll actually steal kind of what both of you have said, but I think a lot of it is just your mentality, which is if you genuinely believe and you convince yourself that what you're doing is going to work and can work, that rubs off. Folks can just sense that. But here's the thing, you can't delude yourself. Folks can also sense that too. So that gets back at this creative work, Ratan, which you were talking about, which is you need to actually take the time to think things through, understand the market, et cetera, better than anyone, and then communicate that. And then I don't know what you said, that comes down to clarity of thought. But if you convince yourself and genuinely believe, then it's like, hey, this is going to work, whether or not an investor or someone else joins, but I want you to be a part of it.
Absolutely. No, I agree with that. We'll probably compile this. I think all of you all touched upon very interesting stuff. We'll try compiling that post this session. But with that, we come to the end of this session. We have the last section, which is essentially a closing, or in case you want to plug, Ratan, Amna, if there's any, anything that you'd like to share with our community in terms of, in case you're launching something, you want a couple of beta users, in case you're hiring, if you have any special discounts for them, feel free to plug it in. It could be in the chat section or it could be post this as well. But yeah, the next 30 seconds is yours. From our side, thank you so much for joining in. Arjun, I know you have an announcement post this for our audience, but yeah, next 30 seconds is for you guys.
Amna, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many women are there in the audience, but even for the men, tell your wife, sisters, girlfriends about Binks. We are live in Bangalore at the moment, so I would love to get feedback from product people. That is my favorite kind of feedback. So yeah, try us out. Tell us what you think. Over to you, Ratan.
Yeah, Amna, just a request. Why don't you have a sort of a men's also section? Like, come on, this is like you need to have that.
We have to extend the talk for another hour. We can get deep in the weeds here.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people solving for that already. So like, yeah, I'd recommend Bombay Shirt. I think they're doing a good job. But we'll get there. We'll solve for women. If we can, I think, solve for women, we can solve for anybody. So, yeah.
Yeah, great. From my side, two things. One, please do try out our app. It's on Play Store. Would love your feedback. I'll be available on Twitter. We also have Spenny community groups. You can join them. Share all your feedback with us anytime, or just get on a call with me. I'm always open to getting feedback. Second, we are hiring in terms of tech, full stack developers, sort of backend developers, front end developers, product designers. We're looking for good product designers, senior product designers, and marketers. So we're just hiring across the board. So anything of that sort.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Arjun. Just before I hand it over to you, folks, in case you enjoyed the session, we are also adding, the companies as well as Amna's and Ratan's Twitter links in the chat section, so you guys can definitely reach out to them. Share Arjun's as well. I think he's building out in the US, so if anyone here is joining us from that part of the world, or in case you all are building startups, right? If you all are going for the registration process, do reach out to him. And in case you like the session, do tag them, give them shout out so that we can bring them more often. We can invite them to our community where you all can directly stay in touch with them. And they're building early, so at this stage, any support that you all could give as a community, do definitely support. I think one is in the fintech space, one is in if you're gifting something, do reach out. And it's also from the product feedback. As a community, we can definitely come, any small help that you guys can do from personal handles from your side, that'll go a long way. Arjun, over to you. Thanks once again, Ratan. Thanks once again, Amna.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was awesome, and not kidding. I think, at least I think we can keep going for an hour on any one of these topics. The monkeys alone, I'm still thinking about the monkeys. But look, this was a ton of fun. There will be more events. Two quick things for folks who have stayed around till now, or even if you come watch us in the future. Everyone here is building, so for anyone here, we have a little perk that we're going to give out. Actually, $500 in Twilio credits for SMS, voice, or WhatsApp, and $1,000 in credits for your email API and marketing campaigns. So I guess let's do things which don't scale here. Another YC mantra. For now, I don't have a web form or anything. If you just DM me, I can get you set up with that. And then also, I'm going to add one other thing here. This again does not scale, but let's try this out. We get questions all the time about US taxes, US banking, and US payments. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put out a tweet. Feel free to DM or reply there and ask away your questions. If I don't know the answer or can't point you to a resource, we'll get you set up with a free consultation with a US CPA. So let's see. Maybe we get overflooded with demand here, but let's try to get this figured out. So again, there shouldn't be any bottlenecks. As folks have talked about here, there's tons of resistance and fear in terms of starting a company, but let's not let compliance or education be the reason why folks can't get started. So yeah, I'll drop those links in there, but this was a ton of fun. Thank you both, Ratan and Amna and Suhas.
Absolutely, no, thank you. Even I love this. And now that Arjun has announced a bunch of things, and I'm adding one from our end. This wasn't planned, but Freshworks is giving out $10,000 credit for TPF folks. Have added that link on the chat section. This is a bonus. We hadn't planned this honestly, but only because I had a little bit of FOMO given that Arjun's giving out so much. So go check that out in case there's something that we could do about
Too
it.
much peer pressure, guys. I will also have to give out vouchers.
Yes, y'all should definitely. We're waiting for that. But no, thanks so much, Ratan. I think lots of feedback, comments coming on our chat section. Folks really enjoyed this journey. It's only our first one on this episode, right? We've started this newly, but it really gives us a little bit of insight, given that y'all have broken into YC and y'all have been building, and a lot of folks can relate with it since it's a recent journey, right? So all the best to you, folks. And if there's anything that we as a community could do definitely reach out. I think lots of folks who are interested to help out. And with that, wishing you the very best. We'll see you guys soon.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank
See you,
you.
Arjun.
Bye bye.
Thanks
bye,
everyone
everyone.
for joining. See you.